My name's Tim Gillingham. I'm here in Redding, California at the Western Classic Trail. We're going to give you a few tips on shooting in the wind. Okay, we're here at this 70-yard boost target, and this weekend here at Redding, especially today, we've had to deal with a lot of windy conditions, and windy conditions are really tough for archers to handle. A lot of guys just learn to really hate shooting in the wind. Myself, I've actually learned to shoot quite well in the wind, and I really kind of look forward to the wind, because usually myself, I know that I usually advance in the field when the wind, comes up. And that's due to the fact that I practice in the wind. I've learned how, different techniques to shoot in the wind. Now, some of the things that we can do, to tell us the wind direction, if we're shooting at this moose target here, is, we can tie a ribbon or something like this on the end of our stabilizer. Okay, this will tell us wind direction. You want to look down the range and look at the ribbons in the grass and try to determine which way the wind direction is actually blowing. I try personally not to be the first guy up to the stake when the wind's blowing. I don't want to be the guinea pig. So if everybody's pervasively blowing out one side, then you get a little bit better idea as to whether or not you need to allow for the wind or not. Now, as far as equipment goes, equipment's extremely important in the wind. And when I make and recommend products and arrows to people, I cover primarily one of the huge advantages to shooting in the wind is arrow weight. You want to be shooting as heavy of an arrow as you can possibly shoot. Just like bullets, heavy arrows drift less in the wind. This makes it to where you don't have to allow as much. Smaller diameter arrows also help in the wind, but really mass weight is the key. And the reason we want this is a smaller diameter, heavier weight arrow does not slow down as fast. When an arrow slows down, that's what makes it really susceptible to wind drift. Okay, one of the advantage of this particular Hoyt boy, especially for me, if you want to look at my situation, some of the bows I'd shot previously in the past were quite a bit slower, and I just had to deal with what I had to deal with. Shooting this bow the last couple of years is really beneficial to me, because it's really about 20 foot a second faster. Now, what 20 foot a second means to me as an archer is I can shoot an arrow that is roughly 60 grains heavier. Okay, 60 grains of arrow weight downrange in the wind is dramatic in its ability to help you shooting in the wind. So when you're picking a bow for field archery, don't necessarily pick a bow that's what you would shoot indoors. You might want to really consider going up to a little bit faster bow because it allows you to shoot a much heavier arrow. Okay, your equipment setup has a lot to do with your ability to shoot comfortably and accurately in the wind. Things like, a wider launcher here, on your arrow rest that doesn't, where you don't have to worry about the arrow falling off your rest. Things like your aiming aperture. Now, a lot of shooters shoot different aiming apertures in archery. Some people shoot a circle where they actually circle the target. Some people shoot a dot, okay? When you get outside and shooting into the wind, you have to take that into consideration. An aperture, for example, a ring that circles the dot, might be more difficult for you to shoot in the wind. It's much more difficult to actually aim off to the side of the dot, so you'll have to incorporate a technique called bubbling. Now, a lot of the pros out here use a technique called bubbling, and that's just using the level bubble in your sight, and then learning, how much of a cant left or right you need, based on what the bubble's telling you, to give you a certain amount of impact at a specific distance. Myself, I find that technique very difficult. I prefer aiming off, and I think for me, aiming off is much more accurate. Throughout practice, I can assess, the wind's blowing this hard. I use flagging a lot on my targets so that I can tell, when the wind's blowing this hard, I need to aim this far. And to me, it's more accurate because it allows me to protect the spot. It allows me to, okay, I'm going to aim right side of the spot because I know the wind's blowing to the left. That gives me the whole spot to work with. With bubbling, you have to know how much a half a bubble gives you at every specific distance you're shooting. So it's a little bit more difficult to be really precise that way. But some people do like aiming in the middle better, so they'll actually bubble the bubble one way or the other, and then that allows them to aim in the middle. Both techniques work. Personally, I prefer aiming off. But one of the big advantages I have personally in shooting in the wind is my ability to trigger the shot. I shoot an index finger or a thumb button, but what I do, the way I shoot and process my shot is my sight picture actually fires the shot. So what I typically try to do is imagine, my sight pin coming in here and getting smaller, boom. Well, when we're shooting in the wind, I might have to do that over here. Okay? So if all the time when you're practicing, you're only practicing aiming here, that's going to be a problem when you get in a windy condition. So first thing I do when I get in a windy shot and I know I'm going to have to aim off, I program my brain through visualization as to where I need to aim, and it's very important that I do that. So I'll run a quick program into my brain and say, okay, I need to aim here. I want the sight picture to come in here. It's at 3 o'clock, smaller, 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 boom. That's very important because it's very important for me to stay focused on this spot and not get drawn over into here. Okay. If you're a back tension shooter and you shoot a back tension shot, you might want to do the bubble off technique. This allows you to aim here all the time, and then you use your bubble canted one way or the other to allow for the wind.